These subterranean keepers of the VRIL could destroy mankind.
Should they come up and decide they wanted to colonize the surface of the planet, we would be doomed.
It may seem the kind of tabloid truth that one would expect to find in sensational newspapers, but the VRIL Society really were consciously dedicated to the service of evil, and by their impact on the founders of the Nazi Party, they instilled that evil into the senior leadership of what was to become the most evil regime in the 20th century.
Most sources say that the VRIL Society was founded in 1918 at a mysterious meeting in the Bavarian town of Berchtesgaden. It was a holiday center and would later house the country retreat of Adolf Hitler. It is said that in a mountain lodge, a group of occultists and high-ranking German nationalists secretly gathered to create a powerful inner circle called the All-German Society for Metaphysics, otherwise known as the VRIL Society.
Essentially, it was founded by two people, Rudolf von Sebottendorf.
Von Sebottendorf had been very active in the occult movement. He was a Freemason, an alchemist, and a founder of the Tula Society. Their belief in a mythical civilization was a precursor to Nazi Aryan ideas.
His real name was Adam Glauer, and he was the son of an engine driver, but he awarded himself a title of nobility.
In creating the VRIL Society, von Sebottendorf was joined by a man who would darkly influence world history.
The other main person within it was Dietrich Eckart.
He was said to have strong powers of persuasion, particularly in his anti-Semitic writings.
Dietrich Eckart was Hitler's closest personal friend between 1918 and his death in 1923.
Eckart believed he was paving the road for Germany's own savior.
He was, in many respects, a mad genius. And it's no accident he spent a great part of his time in and out of mental institutions.
The founder of the VRIL went by a very curious name.
John the Baptist.
And we all know that in the Bible, John Baptist is a sort of paver of the road for the true Messiah.
Eckart was also one of the masterminds behind the Nazi Party.
Eckart saw Hitler as the German Messiah. He saw him as the man sent to save the country.
And he wasn't the only VRIL founder who felt that way. It has been suggested that these two men were joined by two women, mediums responsible for finding the hidden occult truths and harvesting VRIL.
In those days, it was the golden age of what was known as physical mediumship, where not only were they forever moving objects and table turning and levitating, but also they used to produce a substance called ectoplasm out of their bodies.
One of these mediums is said to have predicted the new German Messiah.
During her state of trance, she declared that the apparition she had given form to was going to be the next German Messiah, who she proceeded to name as Adolf Hitler.
So the VRIL Society may have indeed paved the way for the person they would promote as the country's Messiah. Their next step would have been to secure his ultimate weapon, VRIL.
They believed that that would give them power.
This occult group of German nationalists may have grown quickly to become an elite inner circle of the Nazi Party.
Many of the top leaders, including Hitler himself, were members of the VRIL Society. Karl Harrer, Anton Drexler and Dietrich Eckart are three of the most important figures in the transition from the VRIL Society to the Nazi Party.
Eckart was considered the darkest of them all and dedicated to Hitler's success.
He did have certain perverse gifts, and not least of which was his ability to train Hitler in the use of, you know, what one might loosely call the power of a human heart and human mind.
Hermann Goering, commander of the Luftwaffe, was said to be a member.
It is virtually certain that he was introduced to it in around 1920, probably by Dietrich Eckart.
Alfred Rosenberg, minister of the Third Reich, probably a member.
Rosenberg believed that the Aryan race was superior to every other, of course, and, you know, he believed that Jesus was not Jewish, but an Aryan.
Rudolf Hess, deputy Führer, another likely member.
Hess believed everything. He used to sleep with magnets under his bed to try and draw off harmful emanations.
Martin Bormann, chief of the Nazi Party Chancellery, also thought to be a member.
Martin Bormann was probably considered the most evil one. He was an avowed and open Satanist. He was quite categorical about his desire to exterminate Christianity as well as Judaism, because he saw Christianity as simply, as he called it, a Jewish perversion.
And the most senior Nazi in the VRIL Society, Adolf Hitler himself.
Hitler was, by definition, a dark person, but he took advantage of the dark fellowship of the VRIL Society for his own ends.
Hitler is said to have used the frenzy surrounding this occult group to his advantage, manipulating its members.
Not one of the members had an iota of his ruthlessness and, in a sense, intelligence.
Hitler used any means that he could, including the occult fanaticism of the era, as a tool to help his rise to the top.
He saw the whole thing consciously as a means to an end, which was the transformation of Germany and the establishment of himself as its leader.
But he did have some deep occult beliefs of his own.
He believed to considerable extent that occult forces, or whatever one likes to call them, this VRIL, had some kind of reality.
Some believe his first occult exposure happened just before World War I in Vienna, when he met a man named Lanz von Liebenfels.
Von Liebenfels thought Hitler was a natural medium.
Von Liebenfels was obsessed with the Aryan occult. He was known to frequent the ancient town of Carnuntum in Austria, where the Germans defeated the Romans in the 1st century.
He invented a whole new religion that he called Ariosophy.
And he made his bizarre beliefs known publicly.
He published a magazine called Ostara, which was full of racial ramblings and bizarre occult philosophy.
Hitler was allegedly an avid reader of Liebenfels' pamphlet.
He actually physically advocated that the Jews should be killed simply for being Jewish.
With this racist teaching, Hitler was one step closer to VRIL and the final solution. But how is it possible that a dark fellowship as bizarre as the VRIL Society could even exist, let alone contribute to the most evil regime in modern history?
It has had an influence on world history out of all proportion.
The confusion surrounding the era offers clues to the VRIL Society's influence.
It was a very convoluted time. There were a multitude of secret societies.
From about 1888, well into the 1920s, hundreds of secret societies formed, reformed, and gave birth to new and even more secret subgroups. Some were dangerous nationalistic orders, like the Serbian Black Hand Society, responsible for the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria.
Black Hand Society was largely responsible for the First World War.
And many of the era's dark fellowships were simply racist, sharing the sentiments of Lanz von Liebenfels, who believed Aryans were gods.
He